Hey fam, and welcome to another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today we have an incredible episode with my girl, Hannah Taylor. She's actually a real estate agent in Denver, Colorado. Folks who want to get started house hacking and investing in real estate. And the cool thing about Hannah is that she actually purchased her very first investment property for $3,000 total. And you can too. And I cannot wait because this episode literally just boils it down and digs into the goods of exactly how you can buy a property for very little money. I'm talking like less than $25,000, less than $10,000, sometimes even $0. Okay. So take a listen to this episode. Let me know what you think. Hannah's such a go getter and we have very similar mentalities and personalities. So you're just going to hear us like vibing the entire time. So Hannah, you got started in real estate investing in particular, like right when the world kind of shut down, right?
My timing couldn't have been better, to be honest with you.
Okay, so tell me about that because I know we're in such an interesting time right now where there's a lot of uncertainty in the market and everyone's like, is there going to be a recession? Is the world going to shut down? Like what's actually happening? You know, you got started in a time where it was kind of chaotic and no one knew what was going to happen. So can you tell me a little bit about your experience then?
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling like it's like Groundhog's Day now, it's like the same experience all over again, but now I'm on the other side of it as a realtor and not the buyer. What happened was I was living in Denver in 2020 or 2019, paying rent, high rent and low high. And I had this dream of buying a house and I scrambled. I met with a realtor in November of 2019. And I said, I'm not going to be ready to buy for another year, right? I need to save up money. All the stories that we tell ourselves as first time buyers, we're like, I need 20% down. I need to save. And he's like, look, you don't need that. You need 5% down, maybe. And I was like, all right, I can do that, but I still don't feel safe. So I hustled. I actually started driving Lyft every single morning before my 9 to 5. I'd wake up, get out of the house at 5 a.m., get in the Lyft car and drive until 8:30. And so I started working with my realtor and we're just seeing properties in January of 2020. COVID was not a thing at that time. I'd never heard of it at that point in time, right? And so come February, I had actually found an excellent house I was going to rent by the room. I personally, my threshold for having a number of roommates is only 2 at a time. So I was bedroom place that actually gets me close to breaking even. I'm okay to contribute a little bit to my mortgage. So put the offer in February, around February 20th, with a closing date of March 20th. So,
oh my gosh, that's literally what, 5 days after everything shut down or something?
Yeah, exactly. You can imagine this 30 days, right? As a first-time home buyer, obviously it's a very stressful time no matter what. And so that 30 days, I'm also hearing, and the stories at the beginning of coronavirus where, the world's going to end, everyone's going to die, and like just catastrophe theory. And so being who I am, my mind always goes to worst case scenario, working on that. But of course, I was like, I'm going to end up buying this house and I'm going to have to float the mortgage by myself. I still have the apartment in Lohi that I need to find a sublet to take over my lease there. So I'm going to be stuck with my mortgage and my lease. I'm going to go bankrupt. And I'm like, and I was like, this isn't the plan, right? I had this grand master plan to do this house hacking thing. It was supposed to be genius. So I was really, really stressed out. I actually, I'm not afraid to say I was 30 years old. I had shingles. I was so stressed out.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I was unwell. But the thing that kept me going is I've always had this mentality, like, I have never failed at something that I have set my heart to. And I know in this circumstance, I will do what it takes to make this work. So just keep going. And, this was the biggest risk I'd ever taken in my life. And I was facing so much adversity and so many things out of my control. And being a control freak, that was the most terrifying thing. But at the end of the day, I knew I had my back and I believed in myself.
Drop the mic.
I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to real estate investing. You have to believe in yourself because nobody else is going. Well, other people will, but first you have to believe in you too, right? Yeah. You're the one making the big girl or big boy decisions. You're the one closing on that house. You're the one taking the risk. And completely. So if you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be really hard to take that step. And so I just kept telling myself, I'll figure it out. I'll pick up a second job. I'll continue to drive Lyft. I'll do whatever I have to do. This is the dream. I'm going to achieve it.
Yeah.
So yeah, long story short, I closed on March 20th. I couldn't speak because I had like shingles, and it was just terrible. I signed my papers inside my car because they wouldn't let me into the title office. I walked into my house by myself. It was the most anticlimactic to the first time home purchase ever. But I was actually shocked. I ended up successfully finding roommates. It took me 5 months to fill the low high apartment, but for me, like double paying was not that big of a deal. I had budgeted in for some, additional cushion there. So it really all worked out. And I mean, the best part of this story, and this is why I'm in the career that I'm in now, is that I only put $3,000 down on this property.
Yep.
I got a fantastic grant that paid a lot of my down payment. I was using 3.5% down. I didn't have PMI on the loan that I got. So $3,000 down, and then all of a sudden through COVID, this property appreciated $100,000.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so there is literally so much to unpack right now. So I'm just so excited. Hey girl, if you've been dreaming about building generational wealth and living life on your own terms, this one's for you. Now, 5 years ago, I was right where you are, okay? Burnt out, working a corporate engineering job, grinding with no real freedom in sight. Then I built my first investment property, learned how to live for free, and started making money in my sleep. That one decision changed absolutely everything. I stopped relying on my 9 to 5 and eventually walked away from it for good. And trust me, I don't regret it. Now I'm on a mission to help other people do the same, which is exactly why I created Wanderlust Wealth Academy, a transformational program and community where I teach you how to buy your first or next investment property and live for free in 2025. Now, this community is for 3 kinds of people, okay? If you are stuck in a job that you don't love, secretly dreaming of more freedom, more travel, and more passive income, and you know you don't want to be climbing the corporate ladder for the next 10, 20, 30 years, this is for you. Or maybe you're a digital nomad or a travel girly who just wants to build wealth and create stability without giving up your freedom. Or maybe you're a business owner or high earning corporate baddie who just sees the market volatility and knows that it's time to diversify your income. If any of those sound like you and have a minimum of $10,000 that you can put towards a property, then go ahead and apply for the Wanderlust Wealth Academy. Now, this is going to be a completely free call to see if you're a good fit for us and also for us to see if we're a good fit for you. You can go ahead and apply at oliviatati.com/apply WWA. That's oliviatati.com/apply WWA. Or you can just go ahead and click the link in the show notes. Now, spots are limited. We only take a few new folks a month. So make sure to apply now before there are no spots left, and they go pretty quick. Because my girl, freedom is so much closer than you think. First thing I want to touch on is the fact that even though you probably could have bought a house before hustling and doing Lyft and stuff, you were like, hey, I know I want to be more secure, but I also know that this is something I want to do. So I'm going to hustle and put my all in to save up that extra money. So it's going to happen. And I literally have such a similar story where I discovered real estate investing right during the pandemic. And I, at the time, was actually $25,000 in credit card debt and was just like, well, I really want to buy real estate, but being in $25,000 of credit card debt and buying real estate doesn't quite go together. So let me work on paying this off and building up some of my savings. So like literally 8 months straight, went balls to the wall, got my real estate license, was selling real estate on the side, was a tutor, did social media management, like anything I could to pay off all my debt and save up like an extra $25,000 to buy a property, even though I didn't even use that $25,000 to buy my property. And that's where it's like, when you are set on something, you will make it happen. And so if you're like at that point, you're not making it happen, you have to kind of ask yourself, like, why is that, right? Like, what is it that I'm either avoiding, or is this really something that I want to do, or am I just scared? Like, what is it really? And I love that you just like really went in on it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have the same hustle culture, right? Like I was like doing Rover. I was doing these like online surveys and in person like surveys for $200 here or there. And I was that cheap girl, right? Like all my friends, I got called cheap a few times, but I had such a thick skin at that point. I was like, call me cheap. That's a compliment. Like I'm saving my money to buy a house. You all don't believe me. And
Yeah.
none of you are going to be homeowners in this next year, and I am.
Yep.
And you kind of have to get past that, but you're so right. It's like you have a mindset and you go for it. And I do work with a lot of clients now as a realtor that helps investors purchase homes. And a lot of the times when I see them, they come to me, they say, this is what I want to do. And I see them in their own way, because that is that risk that they're afraid of. And it's, sometimes we have to sit back and say, like, what will it take to make you feel more secure?
Yeah.
And for me at that time, it was more reserve funds, because who knew if I was going to be able to keep my job during COVID, if I was going to be able to find tenants, so it's like finding that security was my main goal, and getting after that in such a tenacious way that I made myself unstoppable.
Ugh, I love that. And so it's so funny because there's a required reading that I have for my coaching students, and I make them read this book called Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. And that's like literally the mindset that you have to have whenever you're going into anything, though. And it's so interesting because people don't think about like the risk of, for example, going to college, right? Everyone's like, it's just what you do. You go and spend $50,000. My college was $200,000. I luckily had a scholarship, but no one questions like, okay, well, what if I don't get a job at the end, right? Or what if, things can always happen, but you have to have that everything is figure outable mindset, period.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
And then another thing that you touched on is like having the right people in your corner and how much of a difference that makes. And I know now you really focus on helping other people get started investing in real estate and buying their first homes and just buying investment properties in general. So can you explain to me like the difference that you see with people who kind of like a team in their corner versus people who don't?
Yeah, I think number one, the team is like your realtor, right? And that's where I've tried very much so, once I decided to be an investor focused agent, to educate myself as much as possible on all different types of investing, so that I can show them, hey, I've done this. I've gone through this process. And I try to lead by example, because I honestly think if you have somebody standing in front of you saying, hey, I have the blueprint for success, follow this step by step, it's really easy. Or, hey, I just had somebody buy a house, like she lives about 5 hours away, and it's an investment for her. And she's like, I don't know if the internet is on. I don't know what to do. I have my first guest coming. And it's like, reach out to me. Let's talk through this. What are the action steps, right? So I think building the team starts with that person that you're working so intimately with to find that investment. But of course, I think it's also those coaches that you have along the way, or that network that you've built along the way. And that's why I think networking is such a huge component of this. So I'm on the board for Rocky Mountain Women Invest, where we teach women how to invest, whether you're doing, house hacking or you're doing fix and flips, whatever your strategy is. But we meet once a month, because you want to surround yourself with like-minded individuals. And so that has been, I think, a huge backbone for what I've done. And I always try to bring any of my clients into those networking communities. So if they can do this, I can do this.
100%.
They overcame those challenges, so I can overcome these challenges. What do they have that I don't have? Nothing. So let me just keep rolling with this. So yeah, I think building the team, through networking, through having, the right people behind you is so important.
Completely. Honestly, that is what got me to quit my job. Is I went to my very first real estate investing conference, and I was just looking around at everyone else. I was like, I mean, they're regular people. like, yes, they're amazing, but they're also very normal, regular people. And I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. And I think hearing people's stories of where they came from, right? Like, I didn't come from anything at all. I paid for college on my own. I moved out of here. Every single dollar I've ever made is mine. I don't have a nest egg. I don't come from a family in real estate. This was not my background or my future whatsoever when I went to college. And so starting from scratch and hearing from somebody that literally drove Lyft at the age of 30 just to make it work and make her dreams, I feel like there's so much power behind that, because we all think of people who are real estate investors and we're like, oh, their family must have been in it, or, oh, their family must have given them startups. And it's like, no, we set our mind to something. And now my money's going to real estate investing instead of expensive clothes. Like, there's just trade-offs that you make when you have your heart set on it.
Totally. And there's also no age limit to real estate investing, because I feel like I've heard people on either side of the spectrum where they're like, maybe they just turned 30 or they're in their 30s. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so behind. But then there are people in their 30s who are like, oh my gosh, I'm too young. And it's just like, no, literally at any point in time, whenever you get the bug, just do it.
Exactly. I feel like that's like the age old saying, like the best time to invest in real estate is right now. Just because, like, every single investor you ever speak with, the one piece of advice or the one thing that they like, if you ask them, what do you wish you had done better in your career? Every single one of them says, I wish I started earlier.
Completely.
It's
Completely.
it's time in the market, not timing the market. And so if you're waiting around for the best interest rates or the best home to pop up or like the very perfect experience, you're getting in the way of other great opportunities. And I see that a lot too with first time investors. They're waiting for that grand slam, knock it out of the park investment on their first one. And that's not always the case, right? We always need to take kind of baby steps or base hits to get where we're going. But as long as your intention is to look at this as a long-term investment, you're always going to have a grand slam.
Completely. Yeah. And I remember even my very first property, like I would say my first one crushed it, slayed it. I was very impressed with it. But I mean, I put in multiple, I think like 10 to 15 offers and got beaten out by every
Yep.
single one of them. And so, but you have to like take your swings, you
Absolutely.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like both properties that I've purchased, I've had to put in like, 5 to 10 offers just because it's such a competitive market. And you do have to take a lot more risk when you're putting in those offers because you're going above asking and maybe you're waiving, inspection contingencies with the exception of health and safety, or you're doing funky things, right? 21-day closes and
Yeah.
covering appraisal gaps. But you just have to keep swinging until you find the right thing.
Completely. And so I really want to cover, you said you bought your first property for $3,000. So
Mhm.
can you walk through that for anyone who just like doesn't even understand how that's possible?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is not my advice, but I did go with a larger bank because I had a fantastic product that suited my needs. Typically, I say go with a local lender or a local credit union because they're much better, especially if you're a first time buyer. You want the education component and the hand holding. But I did go with a larger bank and they allowed me to do 3.5% down. So purchase price on the home was 415,000. And so my total down payment was, I don't know, what does that make it? Like 13,000 or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then of course you have closing costs. But this bank had 2 grant programs that amounted to $17,500. And so I used these grants to go towards my closing costs and my down payment. So when all was said and done, I had to come to the table with just $3,000. And then this also had no PMI on it. So it was just it was the right product for me.
Yeah.
And so, that was kind of my down payment. And then when it came to expenses, I got 2 tenants. So all in as the third tenant of the house, I probably paid $500 a month to live there.
Perfect. And so how much were you paying in rent beforehand?
Before I was in a 2-bedroom in low high. So I think the split cost for me was about $1,300 a month.
Okay. Incredible.
Yep, saving
Incredible.
$800 a month right off the bat, not to mention appreciation, depreciation, tax benefits, mortgage pay down, all the other benefits of owning it.
Exactly. And what people also don't realize too is even just finding, like, depending on the strategy that you use, but let's say if you were going to go a long term rental route, it's hard to find a long term rental these days. Like, it's not impossible, still possible. I literally just had a student who she's cash flowing $1,000 a month on a long term rental,
Good
but
for her.
that is not the norm. Right?
Right, it's not. It's
And
not.
so the reason I love house hacking so much is because you can get these bigger margins, right? Because you're not just cash flowing or you're not just like bringing in income, you're reducing your own personal living expenses, which is probably the highest expense that you have right now, you know?
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. So it was really wonderful. I took that, those savings, and with that, I was actually able to switch my career at that time because at that time I was working in marketing. And so I was able to kind of like, I always call it like pull the arrow back in order to shoot forward. I was able to take a few months where I didn't have any income coming in and transition my career into being a realtor.
Yeah.
Um,
So what made you actually become a realtor?
Yeah, well, I had this wonderful home purchase where now all of a sudden I was living for almost nothing in the greatest city in the United States. And I was like, why doesn't everybody know about this? This is
Mhm.
insane. Like, I want to teach everyone this because this could impact so many people's lives for like the positive. And so I just honestly, it was also during COVID at my desk, at home every day, working for the man and realizing that my income was only going to get to a certain amount. And no matter how hard I worked, my income was never going to exceed a certain dollar amount that they had set for my role. And that was really defeating. And so knowing that I am a hard worker, I was like, I need to start getting into a position where my hard work directly correlates to the income that I earn. And I had the real estate bug so hard. So I just kept at it. I was like, let me just keep absorbing and learning. And so I got my real estate license. And then I kept my W-2 job for some time so I could purchase another home, but started working with my real estate license after work on weekends.
Yep.
Time for a company that allowed me to just be a showing assistant at first. And then eventually I started working with a more corporate long-term rental investor. And I was his exclusive buyer in 10 states. So I had to get my real estate license in 10 states.
Oh my gosh, girl, what?
I was in real estate school solid for like 6 months getting these licenses.
That's so funny because I've still been avoiding so hard getting my Colorado license, even though like it's reciprocal. So I just have to take the state portion, but I'm still like, I don't want to do it.
No. I will say, like, my claim to fame is that I have never once failed a real estate license test, and I've taken, like,
Crush.
over 10. But, I mean, I think I'm just a good test taker. Those licenses tests don't really teach you anything about
No,
this
no.
job.
I literally listened to this podcast. It was called Prep Agent for a week before my test, and I just binged it so
Yep,
hard. And I swear that is what got me to pass my test first time.
100%. Yeah, I did that for, like, every state. I was like, "All right, Arizona,
Yeah.
Washington, like, what are their rules?" Because every state is so different. But, yeah, so that was really fun because I really got to see, like, what more corporate real estate investing was. But I realized that, like, I wanna help the little guy. I wanna
Yeah.
help the person like me, right? That doesn't come from a lot, that has a dream, that wants to get out of whatever they're doing right now and create that life for themselves, and their entryway into that is investing in real estate and like how do I touch more lives that way. And so that's when I switched over to just doing real estate on my own as an independent contractor.
I love that because even when I think about like my coaching, like the number of people that have told me, you need to be selling to, or like working with higher end clients, and you can make so much more money here. But it's like my passion though is helping Olivia 5 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Who had no clue what she was doing, who knew she hated her job, who knew that she wanted to invest in real estate, who wanted more options, right?
Mhm.
That is where my passion lies. And I feel like that's also kind of like why I have stuck to like teaching people how to get started house hacking, how to buy their first, maybe their second, third property and start transitioning out of their corporate jobs or taking a sabbatical and going to travel for a year or whatever that looks like.
Yes, exactly. I feel like there's nothing better than like when one of your clients comes back to you and they're ready to buy their second property. That for me is the biggest thank you I could ever receive is that like they were so successful in their first, they want to do it again. They've got the blueprint, they're ready to go, and their life is just on a completely different trajectory than when I met them initially. So that's like my happiest moment is when I see someone, they're like, "Yep, let's go, number two." I'm like, "Oh, my heart is exploding right now."
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, so tell me a little because I know your at least that first property, you've transitioned strategies quite a few times with that. So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that and the importance of having a bit of flexibility when it comes to buying properties.
Love that. I have transition strategies a lot. And if you look at my portfolio, I'm not the person that stays in my lane. I'm the person that follows like where is the opportunity right now for my life? Because I also can get very, things can get overwhelming when you're managing a lot as one person. So I was renting by the room on that initial property. Obviously, I lived there. And then I went and bought a second property and moved into that second property. So at that time, I had continued that property as a rent by the room. And I was blessed with the most fantastic tenants. I had them all on 6-month leases. And so actually, one of them stayed for 4 years, one stayed for 3.5. That third room, we just kept having a lot of turnover. And I felt as though over time, that turnover became a little exhaustive. And it became exhaustive for the other tenants that were in there as well. And my whole goal as the landlord is to make sure that everybody loves where they live and there's harmony. And if there's a problem, I fix it immediately. Like I will never be a slumlord. That is not my brand. I want everybody to feel good about where they are. So it actually came that all 3 tenants had their leases coming to an end at the end of this March. And so in my mind, I was like, it is very easy when you have two roommates and you're searching for a third to just go and find that third roommate and fill that room. That's
Mhm.
easy to do. But when you have three empty rooms and you're marketing it as such, who's going to be that first person to jump on the bandwagon and say, yeah, I'll live here. I don't know who my roommates will be, but go ahead, Hannah, you fill those rooms. So I was like, this strategy is just, I think the property I outgrew the strategy for that
Yeah.
particular property. And I was like, well, this is a great opportunity because now long-term rents have grown over the 5 years that I've owned this property. I could absolutely fill this house with a long-term tenant, sign one lease, have them on a 1-year lease, and just fill the whole place.
Yeah.
So it was a little I feel like anytime you make a real estate shift, right, it's nerve wracking because you don't know what's going to happen. But once again, I like buckled up and I was like, you'll make it work. Don't worry. Trust yourself. You're going to get through this. And I like just, defurnished all the stuff that I had in the house and found an amazing couple to move in as a long-term tenant. So they moved in at the beginning of this month. I'm super excited. They're like, we love the house. We want to live here
Oh,
for multiple years. And
perfect.
I'm like, great. They love the place. That number one warms my heart. I just gave a couple an amazing place to live for the first couple of years of their new marriage. That means a lot to me. Second of all, they want to live there for a couple of years. That means I can be relatively hands off, which is fantastic. So I can pivot and focus onto growing my portfolio in whatever direction I might be growing in.
Completely.
Yeah.
Nope. I love that. That was like even so my very first duplex, I purchased it knowing that I was going to live on one side, short-term rent Airbnb out the other side. In New Orleans, you can do that when you're living there. And I knew that New Orleans is I just knew that the rules were going to change.
Yeah.
So I was like, regardless, I'm running my numbers as a long-term rental, midterm rental, and just to make sure in case anything happens, it still works, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as expected, after having the property for about 1.5 to 2 years, like rules, like literally there was a period of time where no one could even apply for a short-term rental license. No one could renew anything like that. And I was traveling nomadically and I was already midterm renting out my side. So I was like, let's just switch the other side to a midterm rental too. And then got really lucky. So one of my tenants on one of the sides, they've actually, because usually with midterm rentals, it's like 1 to 6 months, maybe if you're pushing it a few more months more than that. But for these tenants, they've been there for a year. They just asked to extend again. I'm like, you guys can stay there forever if you want.
That is absolutely the best, isn't it? Yeah. So nice.
Completely. But it's like you have to be flexible because markets change, strategies change. What's working before isn't what's working right now. And so, like, knowing that, I do think like it can get hard sometimes with short term rentals because sometimes with short term rentals, it's like, well, the numbers really only work as a short term rental. But I would say, like, always getting the more you can just like run your numbers so that at least it breaks even, or even if it doesn't break even, it's a level where you're okay with dumping like a few extra $100 a month towards the property, then I think you're in like a safer space. But I guess you do sell a lot of short-term rentals. So what do you recommend for anyone who is looking at going the short-term rental route and maybe the property doesn't pencil out
Yeah.
as a long-term rental?
Well, I think there's something to be said about, if you do want exit strategies, long-term rental is always an exit strategy, even if it doesn't completely break even. And the reason I say that is because when you pay your monthly mortgage payment, some component of that is going to your own pocket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is going to be your principal pay down.
Yeah.
And so say that your monthly mortgage payment is $2,500, but you can only get $2,200 for the long-term rent, right? You might be coming out of pocket $300 every single month, but that $300 is going straight towards your principal.
Yeah.
And that principal is going to grow over time as appreciation grows. And so I know that's not an ideal situation, but at the same time, when you think about it that way, it definitely calms your heart when you're kind of having one of those freak out moments. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, you know what? It's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most, like, the lowest risk type of investment you can make. You're always going to have an option. And so I'm kind of in that with one of my properties right now, where I'm like, I can't sell it because I'll sell it at a loss.
Yeah.
I can't long-term rent it because it won't break even. I have to midterm or I have to short-term rent. So what does that mean for me? And just kind of going through with that. And I'm like, you know what? And if I do need to long-term rent, okay.
Yeah.
I sell off my furniture. I put that money into a bank account, and then every month I pay down, whatever difference there is between my rental income and my mortgage payment with the money from the furnishings that I sold off.
Completely.
And so it's like you just make it work. And I think that's like I don't know, if I had like a brand, right? That would be it, because it's like there's always a way. And like you just have to be creative, you have to be strategic. And so I think, when I'm working with clients, a lot of the times, obviously we are penciling for short-term rental, but we'll likely stay probably shopping in the metropolitan area, like greater Denver metro, so that we know, okay, you could midterm rent this. Okay, if you wanted to, you could long term, or you could rent by the room. Here's what that looks like in every single scenario. So if and when it comes to the point where you have to pivot strategy, you can choose what's best for you at that time.
Completely. And so for anyone, because I always get questions from people that are like, should I get my real estate license? What are your thoughts around that?
If you want to get your real estate license, I would say it should be 100% all in type of career swap.
Yeah.
I do think like doing it on the side, it's just a very, very hard game to play. In every single deal that I do, I learn something new. And that's not for a lack of deals that I've done. That's because things change all the time. There are things about properties you would never think would become a problem. And all of a sudden you're dealing with like something so obscure you've never even heard of it before. And your contractor has never even heard of it before. And so it really is something you need to fully immerse yourself in, especially if you want to guide or lead someone or teach someone, right? You can work all day with people who have done real estate transactions before, and they know how to get a lender, and they know everything about it. But at the end of the day, the majority of your clients, because they're going to be coming from your own sphere, they're going to be probably those first time home buyers that need that education, and they need to be able to trust you that you know what you're doing.
Completely.
Also, is just a hustle, man. It is.
Yeah.
It's a grind until the day is done type of
Yeah.
job, and that's why I love it. It really is. And it's every day is different, which is also why I love it. But you have to be willing to work until 10 p.m. on a Saturday sometimes.
Completely. No, it's so funny because so many people, they see it on, especially with shows like Selling Sunset. They're like,
Oh
"Oh
yeah.
my gosh, this looks so easy." I'm like, "Y'all, you don't
No.
even know the hustle." Because I remember I was also doing it like before. This was when I was working my corporate engineering job, and I really only did being an agent part time, but I was hustling. Like I did nothing else during lunchtimes, during after work, before work, whenever I could, and was able to make some money. Like I think that first year I made about 40K, which honestly for
Amazing.
side hustle, crushing it. But I was also posting on social media like a crazy person. I was telling everyone, all my coworkers, like, you need to buy a house? Do you need to buy a house?
So good.
And it was just like such a hustle. And there's a reason I actually don't do it myself now. And I love referring it to other people. But you definitely don't need your license to invest,
Mhm.
unless you know for sure that it's like the reason why I still have my license is for referrals, and because like I can kind of be in the network, and whenever I'm in New Orleans I like to like take a look and see what's on the market and dig into the details. But I would say you're better off, especially for your very first one, just finding an investor friendly agent who is going to help you through the entire process.
I would agree. I think, especially if you are looking to short-term rent a property, right? There's so many local legislations that you have to finagle around, and you really have to abide by those, do it right. And so if you're looking at properties, you might be looking in a completely wrong area where they don't allow short-term rentals, or that your occupancy is capped by a certain number because of the size of your septic tank. And you might have been underwriting to have a 10-person occupancy, but the county is only going to allow you 6 people. That really changes your underwriting. And so you need to have somebody who has a background in it. And then I think, even if you're trying to just do it so you can represent yourself in the sale and save some money, I'll be honest, I represented myself in my first real estate transaction. And if I could go back in time, I would 100% have had an experienced agent beside me, because I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm still paying for it, right? And these are the stories that agents can tell because they have the experience, right? It's like, no, don't do that because that could cost you so much down the line. Right. That might not be a problem today, but that's going to be a problem later. And those are things you just don't know as somebody who's just walking in saying, let me just save because I don't have to have the seller pay a buyer agent compensation if I buy myself, or like if I sell myself the house myself, I don't have to pay any agents. And it's like, you're going to leave so much money on the table or make a big costly mistake. So, yeah, I hate to like compare it to like a surgeon or something like that, but like you would never have, an amateur do open heart surgery on you. And, you'd really vet out the doctor and make sure he knew his experience and or he was experienced and he knew his stuff. And the same goes for a realtor, because this is the biggest purchase you will ever make in your life. And you need
Completely.
experienced and knowledgeable behind your back for sure.
Completely. Also, don't just find a random realtor on Zillow
No. Like your
because
cousin or like
yeah.
your neighbor because you feel bad saying no to them. Like it's a business deal.
Completely. Well, Hannah, we are going to go into the 3 final interview questions that I ask every single person on the show. Number 1, what does your ideal perfect day look like?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I cherish my mornings because that's when my phone is the quietest. So in the morning, I get up and in an ideal world, I'm in the Colorado mountains. I'm hiking, I'm skiing, I'm biking, I'm doing something. And if I'm not there, I'm at least at the gym. So I'm getting some sort of movement in. As I go through, are we talking like a real estate day or like a Hannah personal day?
Up to you.
Well, I do love showing houses, so I'm gonna put that in there. Because it is really fun to see houses with
Yeah.
people, especially, like, when they're excited and they're motivated and they're having fun with it. It's a blast. So let's say I've got some showings involved in there. Maybe I even get one property under contract. That always
Ooh, yes.
or
Maybe
maybe it
me
closes the deal.
too.
Yeah. And then, I definitely need friends and family. My community is the biggest thing. And so whether that's a walk around Sloan's Lake with a friend, or a dinner with some friends, whatever it might be. And then I'm probably wrapping up the day reading a book. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my perfect
Perfect.
day.
I love that. I love that. Okay, question number 2. What's your mantra?
Ooh, gosh, I think just circling back to the things that we've talked about, it really is just like I will figure this out.
Mhm.
I think more so like I have never failed myself before. So this
Yeah.
will not be the first time. I'm consistently telling myself that just to make sure that I know I'm going to succeed no matter what I put my mind to. I will do whatever it takes. So yeah, I think that that's my mantra.
I love it. I know. I literally in my journal every day write everything is figure outable. So
Yes.
I feel that. And last question, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means flexibility. It means stability, and it means a future that you look forward to.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think having the flexibility to do what you want now, having the stability to know that like you're going to continue to grow in this space and that your future looks bright because you have so much that's just set in place for you that you're going to reap the rewards from in the future.
Yes, I love that. And it's so crazy because, I know we talked about like hiring a coach and stuff, but like one of the big things that I'm really focused on this year is like building, like planting seeds, putting
Mhm,
systems in place for
mhm.
the future. And like a lot of it does not look sexy, right? And it's a lot of grinding it out in the background, but it's putting the same way that I did with real estate, it's putting these systems, processes in place because future
Mhm.
Olivia is going to thank me, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's like pulling that arrow back. So you're taking a pause just to make sure you've got your systems in place that you can shoot forward. And that's exactly what I think real estate investing is in a nutshell. And so, yeah, I think wealth is just like being on that curving arrow, just flying through the sky and just being so happy about where you are and where you're going to land.
I love that. Well, Hannah, what is the best way for people to reach out to you, especially if they're looking for properties in Denver? Or I guess really like you got 10 different states.
Let's keep it to Colorado now. I saved my lane. I saved my lane. But yeah, no, if they're looking for a house hack or investment property in Denver, you can reach out to me on Instagram. That's invest her Hannah. So I've got the Instagram. I'm also at hannahtaylorhomes.com. And you'll find all my contact information there. Or just, if you're into Facebook, I'm on Facebook as well. Hannah Taylor. So yeah.
I know. I always forget about Facebook. I log in there probably once a month and I'm like, oh, missed messages. Whoops.
Facebook Marketplace, though, there's something about it. It's like my
Fair.
addiction.
Fair. I mean, even when renting, like trying to list a property for rent, go to Facebook
Mhm.
Marketplace.
So much savings right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. This was amazing.
It really was. Thank you, Olivia. I really appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally like anyone off of the street. Like right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.